Welcome to FinScale, a podcast created by Solène Niederkorn, shedding light on innovation in finance, banking, and insurance.
Chat about funding and risks posed by emerging technology and science. Enrica Angelone, CEO of Wallife.
Yeah, so we are an InsurTech, and this is important to us because we always have and add a technology component to the insurance component. And this is very important because those risks are so, I would say, unprecedented. So there are no data to really price the risk. So the only insurance component would probably not be enough, let's say, to protect the individual risk. This is why we talk about solutions, because there is always a component of insurance and a component of technology. And with the technology component, we actually mitigate the risk, we ring fence in a sense, and we make the risk lower to the point that can be insured.
This week, we discuss the emerging risks resulting from technological and scientific progress. My guest, Enrica, highlights the need for innovative insurance solutions to address risks such as cybersecurity breaches or data privacy concerns. She explains how Wallife leverage data sets to identify and analyze these risks and why this InsurTech faces challenges in accessing comprehensive data for accurate risk assessment and insurance pricing. You'll gain insight into how the process of envisioning and designing protection measures involves collaboration with researchers, experts, and industry partners. Wallife works with all these stakeholders to ensure the affordability of its insurance products by assessing associated costs. We also talk about obstacles when researching and prototyping insurance products for risks not currently covered. In the second part of the podcast, Enrica focuses on Wallife as a company, discussing its geographical presence, team, and value position. She also sheds light on the Wallife partnership with Enrica Versicherung, explaining the nature of the collaboration and the reasons for choosing them. She presents Wallife's insurance plans, highlighting the risks covered and providing specific use cases. Enrica also provides insight into the go-to-market strategy, Wallife's investors, and their funding journey, particularly focusing on the recent Series A funding round, which showcases the company's growth and investor interest. Enjoy the show! Hi, everyone. Hi, Enrica.
Hi.
Very happy to have you on my podcast. Can you please quickly tell us more about yourself before we start diving into Wallife?
Thank you. Yes, for sure. So I was a CFO for more than 15 years in my career. So I have a finance background. And I always decided to work with companies which are very innovative and technology focused. So very much on the scale-up side of the corporates. This is what I am, what I like to do. My DNA is about innovation. And even though I was a CFO, I always worked with very innovative and fast-growing companies. And then at some point, I had this big step and I became CEO at Wallife.
Thank you, Enrica. When my friend Luca sent me all the details about Wallife, I was really intrigued about your value position, and I really wanted to explore with you in this episode the landscape of risks that arise from technological and scientific progress, and better understand how you at Wallife, you identify, you analyze, you develop those protective measures, and how you insure those risks. So maybe we can start by this. Can you please provide some insights on the new type of risks that emerge as a result of those scientific progress and those technologies?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Wallife IDM mission is really to provide solutions for new risks, and not any type of risks, but specifically those risks which are generated by technology and innovation. Why is that? It's because we believe that while technology and innovation are bringing to us a lot of new, exciting things to try and new applications that make our life definitely easier, but at the same time, they can bring even additional risks, which we're not prepared for because we are not focused on that side. And also, we don't expect to have more risks associated with technologies. So let me give you an example. For example, and actually this is very, very, actually it came to the surface already in 2019. One of the risks we are investigating is associated with pacemaker and defibrillator. So those technologies existed many years ago, but until very few years ago, they were not connected, which means that those devices, which were inside your body to stimulate the heartbeat when necessary, obviously, they were completely standalone. And therefore, they were somehow safer in the sense they were not possible to access from, for example, hacker. But a few years ago, they became connected. And this technology, on one side, this innovation produced great enhancement, right, for the patients, because now the data produced by your pacemaker can be automatically read and downloaded from from the computer of your doctor, so that your doctor knows exactly real time what's going on with your heartbeat. But so this is a great innovation. But at the same time, they became connected, and therefore they became potentially hacked. And now you might think, oh, well, who is going to do that? But fortunately, sounds like it's happening. Not only in 2019, the Food and Drug Administration recalled more than 500,000 devices for cybersecurity issues. But even recently, there was a research which was carried out from a university in Italy, which counted about 200 attacks in the last 5 years. So this is a perfect example of what Wallife wanted to do. We wanted to investigate new risks associated with technologies, which might become in the future a real threat to individual lives.
So how do you identify those risks? Because there are new innovations every day and new kind of devices and new kind of technologies that are developed, for instance, like the iris screening, which is one of those technologies. So how do you identify all those potential threats, potential risks, and how do you work on it to identify them and see how you can mitigate those risks?
Yeah, so we are an InsurTech, and this is important to us because we always have and add a technology component to the insurance component. And this is very important because those risks are so, I would say, unprecedented. So there are no data to really price the risk. So the only insurance component would probably not be enough, let's say, to protect the individual risk. This is why we talk about solutions, because there is always a component of insurance and a component of technology. And with the technology component, we actually mitigate the risk. We ring fence in a sense, and we make the risk lower to the point that can be insured. So this is why we consider ourselves an InsurTech, not in the sense, I would say more traditional sense. An InsurTech is typically seen for example, digital distribution platforms or any type of enablers for the digital component, for the digital transformation of an insurance business, while we are very focused on product innovation on the insurance side. And we also focus on bringing into the product a component of technology. That's the InsurTech bit. So how we do this? We basically have two components in our team. One team is more focused on the research side. So we are investigating new trends which we believe they're going to become obviously important in mass market in the future, not any type of trends. Otherwise, it would be very complicated. So far, for example, we are investigating the biometrics trend, so the usage of our biometric credentials for a number of applications. We're also investigating the metaverse in a broad sense, so the Web 3.0, the decentralized finance, all those type of applications which can be on blockchain or off blockchain. And this is, again, it's a trend that we believe is going to become very important. And we also investigate in as I mentioned earlier, what we called health tech, so the medical devices connected to a certain database or to our body. So those are the three trends that we are actively scouting. And when we identify the risk, a use case that could be potentially subject to obviously a number of checks that could become a product, then the second component that the company kicks in, which is the insurance team. And then at that point, we really work to understand how we could be pricing that risk, what component of technology we need, how we would market the risk, and so on and so forth. So those two elements, they are really, I'd say, our DNA. We always work with a pipeline of research, which is probably ahead in terms of at least a couple of years ahead in terms of investigation. And then the insurance component will, let's say, start working on a product when we have already a number of data and a number of data points for us to convert into a product. So that's how we basically work. Okay.
And how do you practically assess the costs associated with those protections? It's very complicated. I had an InsurTech, HR tech in between a few weeks ago on my French podcast. And it seemed to me that when it's a new kind of risk, it's very complicated for insurance companies that are supporting you in building the product to assess this cost and to make it affordable for insurance takers.
Yeah, that is exactly, I would say, our focus. We are working on a number of data points. So we build our own data sets, which can be either through research. We also partner with a number of universities to really build our data set. We also have a number of surveys, for example. So we really work on creating our own data sets that can be the baseline for the pricing, but we basically work with predictive models. So we don't look at the statistics, but we are making models which are based on, I would say, assumptions. And the reason why we can afford the risk is, as I said, with the technology component, we basically, I would say, ring fence the risk and somehow we make it insurable. So let me give you, for example, a very concrete example. One of the key risks we are insuring is the risk that our biometric credential will be effectively cloned or duplicated. So basically our Face ID. Now, everybody thinks that the Face ID is way safer than a password, which is the case, by the way. It's so way safer. But at the same time, we know that already it was stated by a research at the University of Tel Aviv that they had replicated 64% of the Face ID of a certain database just by using artificial intelligence.
Wow.
So the reality is that the artificial intelligence is bringing a lot of good innovation, but at the same time is increasing the risk that, for example, our Face ID will be duplicated. So Wallife is asking, we asked ourselves, how can we possibly insure this risk? Because if this happens, then how do I distinguish? How can I identify a fake Face ID as opposed to my own Face ID? How do I defend myself? And so we created a very unique feature, which has been patented by Wallife, and it's called the behavioral signature. It's basically an algorithm that recognizes the pattern of usage of a device and therefore is able to validate or not in case of a fake ID, basically a fake Face ID, is able to immediately flag out if somebody has been using our phone, although using a credential, which could be exactly the same, but is not us, because the behavioral signature is not does not belong to us. So that is one of the features we are putting in place, just to give you the sense of how we make this possible. And we are applying those applications and those features to our model for pricing the risk. So that could be somehow benefiting, right, from the security feature and become affordable in a sense. Otherwise, for the frequency at which we get, the digital frauds today, it would be really complicated. Yeah. But we're applying those type of applications, then we can really, I would say, mitigate and prevent the risk, and therefore we can make it affordable.
Yeah, okay. So those are risk mitigation processes that you have created to make it affordable, as you said. But what was interesting for me is to really understand the obstacles that you face when you research and prototype future insurance products, because those are new risks, as you said, and you mentioned those 3 different categories of risks. What are the main obstacles that you see when you build those products? Because I believe it's also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but also a negotiation that you need to have with the insurer that is supporting you. And maybe we will discuss afterwards the nature of relationship you have with Enrica Versicherung, which is the insurer you're working with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I would say there are a couple of obstacles. One is the lack of data. As we discussed, this is not easy. We are being focused on product innovation, and clearly those type of risks have no track record or very small track record. So most of the time we have to create our own data set or also explore around the world what authority or what institution could possibly have some data sets that could be helpful for our pricing. So it's very, I would say that's one of the obstacles that sometimes requires a longer cycle before we can actually launch a product on the market. To give you an example of the connected pacemaker, this is, for example, one specific example where we have identified the risk, we have identified the solution, even from a technical perspective, but unfortunately we haven't identified we haven't identified a partner that is willing to share a little bit the data, open up a little bit the data, and provide us with the last, let's say, bit of information that we need. So I would say the lack of data and sometimes I'd say concern or resistance of partners to open their data and to share co-design with us. That's the second obstacle. Sometimes, especially technology providers, that could be benefiting so very much from an insurance, because I'll give you an example, okay, which is something we're working on. One of the, as I said, one of the trends we are working on is metaverse. And metaverse, we're exploring several use cases. We're exploring, for example, the e-wallet. And that is a very interesting I would say opportunity, because at this stage there is no insurance or third-party insurance for e-wallets. But at the same time, we need some, I would say, because of the what happened with the crypto in the last year. Obviously, there is a little bit of resistance to share data with us. Or to open, the numbers, how many, what's the size of a wallet, or what's the frequency of the usage. Very easy, I would say, not very complicated questions, but a certain type of question that we need to just complete the product. So we have a product ready to go, but we are still missing a partner that will be, I would say, willing to share some data with us. To really finalize the pricing. So that is an obstacle that I think is, in my view, this, for example, a product like this will actually be very useful for the platforms that are, platforms for exchange of cryptocurrency or NFTs, because this will enhance, right, the offering. They will be perceived as more secure because they're insured. So there is no doubt that this might actually foster the adoption of those platforms and those technologies. But the initial, I'd say, resistance to share data is what is preventing the product to be live. So I would say lack of data, and sometimes I would say a little bit of lack of sharing. Those are the main obstacles, and that hopefully, as we go, right, they're going to become lower and lower.
Yeah, and I see a third one, if I may, is also the technicity of some of those technologies, because you mentioned some of them, but they are very technical. And how do you collaborate? Because I believe you don't have all the expertise in-house. Do you have a researcher or expert or advisor, industry partners that you rely on with regard to the understanding and full understanding of even the data from all those devices or technologies? How do you ensure that you have a very clear picture?
Yeah, no, exactly. So we are working with I would say, more sort of an open innovation model. We have internal people focused on research, but also external partnerships. For example, on the biometric trend, we cooperate with the University of Cagliari, where there is a biometric fraud unit led by Professor Marchalis, with whom we collaborate to understand a little bit better how we could, for example, preventing or, limiting, let's say, the risk of deepfake. That's an example. We also cooperate with provider of technology or also system integrators sometimes, because they can help us to address the risk of one of their customers. So they have a specific, I would say, use case they want to cover. And I don't find anybody in the insurance industry able to cover that risk or to investigate that risk from a technology perspective. So we bring in our competence as both technology partner and insurance partner. So that sometimes it's a cooperation that works very well. And in general, we have two advisory boards. One is our mainly, I would say, partners and I would say senior expert in a certain domains. That can be digital. That can be, for example, we have a surgeon which is expert on the heart, on the biomedical side. So it depends on which trend we are exploring. We get also depending on the trend we are exploring, we partner with the right advisor that can help us to understand the use case. But also, and this is very interesting, I think, actually last week, we have started a young advisory board. And that is it's below 25 years, and there are about 15, young teenagers.
Yes.
The reason why we started that is because, as I said, we are exploring the metaverse also on the side of the gaming. As you know, gaming is one of the use cases of metaverse, which is actually most, frequent and popular. And we really wanted to understand what are the new risks associated with gaming and how they are perceived from, a younger consumer perspective, what are the risks they perceive, and how we can help them eventually to sort those risks. So, on one side, the advisory board is more expertise. The young advisory board is probably more like a immediate real time feedback to a new technology.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, they're really, really great, by the way.
I'm interested to also understand who are your potential clients or current clients, because I see many different kind of client categories, but who do you see as your main potential clients?
Well, we are definitely tackling the personal line category. So our products are mainly for individuals. We don't cover businesses at the moment. So theoretically, let's say the consumers are the final target. But in terms of go-to-market, we are not a B2C. We don't have, I would say, the financial capacity for a complete B2C strategy. So we think that those type of products that we are launching are more probably right for an embedded product. Yes. So we are actually partnering with a lot of technology. That could be technology providers, that can be financial institutions, that can be security software that want to help their customers to be safer and offer also something a bit new. So that those are our, let's say, go-to-market channel of distributions and partners. call it customers if you want it, because sometimes they buy the policy for their consumers and they offer the policies embedded into their services. So it ended up, being our own customers. But I would say they are more perceived, from our perspective, they are partners of distribution.
Of course. Okay, so how does it look like Wallife today in terms of team and presence, number of clients? Can you elaborate a little bit on this?
Sure. So we have about 30 people. And they are spread between Rome, Milan, and we have a small team in Zurich, specifically the technology team. I would say in terms of about 40% are women, and about half of the team are engineers. So, R&D, and the other half, they are split between go-to-market and insurance, including innovation. Those are the figures in terms of teams. We're really proud because we've been able to attract pretty much the variety of people coming from different, let's say, experience and different backgrounds. So, as you know, for a startup, sometimes it's not easy to recruit good people. I think we have a great team. We're really proud of the team. In terms of customers, I should say partners of distribution, we have about 4, which are welfare platforms. So they have a proposition where they have a number of products, including insurance, on their catalog, which are distributed and offered to the employees of corporates. And those are I would say, the typical welfare platforms. We also have other channels which are completely different. For example, one is it's called InsurTech, is a first partner, and is a digital identity software. So they bundle the policy with their software to basically validate the digital identity. And it's Italian, but they're also present outside Italy. And then we have a number of corporates that actually really bought the insurance for their own employees because this is perceived as a benefit in a sense, because our product is including a financial reimbursement in case of for example, a charge on your credit card, just to give you an example. So the employee is somehow, is perceiving this as an additional benefit because we're protecting his own bank account. But at the same time, is increasing with the technology component, is also increasing the device, like the smartphone, which is also a working tool. So at the end of the day, corporates are also happy to kind of get a little bit of both, additional security on the phone and, a reward and a fringe and a benefit for their employees. So those are pretty much, it's a variety, I would say, of different model and go-to-market, which we're very pleased with because it means that, we have multiple routes to market.
And in terms of product launch, which product have already been launched and subscribed? Because I never trust websites because sometimes
we talk about research a lot. We haven't talked about it. So the products we launched at the end of 2022 are what we call biometric Wallife biometric ID. So it's the protection for the digital identity. Basically, we protect your smartphone, but not the hardware, but whatever application you have on your smartphone. So we protect against the risk that somebody will steal your credential, not just biometric, but also password, and would potentially, would steal your money on your credit card, on your wallet, on your bank account, or on your Amazon account. So we have a multiple type of, we have 3 packages. One is only reimbursement of financial losses. The second one will also add a technical assistance in case you need assistance with your phone. And the third one, which is let's say the premium version, is also adding a legal protection because as it can happen if somebody will steal your digital identity, you might be asked to, chased by somebody because your the digital signature was on a contract and you don't know about, or, your reputation is at risk and you have to defend yourself. So there are lots of implication on your data being stolen as well.
Okay, thank you very much for being more precise about that. So I said a few minutes earlier that you're working with an insurance which is Enrica Versicherung. And why did you choose them? And second question, because you mentioned a very specific product about coverage of the biometric risk linked with a mobile device. If you extend the category of coverage, how can you ensure that Enrica will remain your main insurance partner?
Yeah, no, Unica was very. The reason why we picked Unica is because they were really receptive and very open to our innovation roadmap, which was pretty unique but very refreshing. When you present the Wallife roadmap, which, for example, this biometric Wallife biometric ID. It sounds like a cyber protection, which is a cyber protection, but only on the personal line, not on the commercial line. So a lot of, there are a lot of insurance in the industry right now which are not so willing to, I would say, scout in that area. And also they are not so open to product innovation, because product innovation is hard in the sense that you approach niches right at the beginning. Now, we believe that those type of niches that we're picking, they are becoming more and more important in the future. If you think about the digital identity, for example, we run a research, according to our data, 1/3 of the Italian population has been already has had an experience of a digital violation. So we're talking about 20 million people. So it's not a niche anymore, but it is a niche in the sense of the product, right? It's not a well-established product yet. So we love the approach that Unica had, which was really partnering on the innovation side. And they helped us a lot in terms of also not requiring at day one that everything was, let's say, I would say, the business case was done and everything was perfect at day one. When you are a startup, especially in such a difficult industry, the business case might be not perfect at the beginning, right? You might not know exactly all the details of your business case because you're innovating, you're doing something new. And I think Unica was really very open to help us to build the business case together and help us to, really fine tune what was needed. So we love the approach of a sparring partner, really. And that was our experience. And in terms of additional products, we definitely working on, as I mentioned earlier, we're very interested on the gaming platform side. Mm-hmm. In order to cover the risks of the younger consumers, not just to be hacked and potentially, be a threat in terms of digital identity, but also in terms of cyberbullying that's, is becoming more and more increasing. And actually, again, according to our data, there is a connection between the two. So the digital identity, an individual or a teenager who had an experience of cyberbullying shows 8 times higher probability to also be hacked and to lose their credential. Mm-mm. So there is a connection between the two. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's very concerning. So we are working on a protection for teenagers that we're willing to launch before the end of 2023 that will really have protections for this specific case. So including a cyberbullying and cyber stalking protection, which is a different protection. It's not just I refund you the money. Because if something happens like that, for a parent, right, it's not important how much money you get from an insurance. Obviously, you're much more interested in understanding how would you, support.
Yes, of course.
So that's what we are working on at the moment, and we foresee the next launch, say after the summer for sure, and before the end of the year.
Cool. Okay, one last word about your Series A funding round, because you announced it a few months ago, and I wanted to know a bit more about your investors.
Yeah, so we had actually two rounds. One was more of a seed round, which was underwritten by a number of, I would say, family and friends, extended extended friends. So it was not just our close family, and we raised 4 million euro. In 2021, and this gave us the chance to start building the obviously our team and starting to develop the research that we needed, the cooperation, the technology. What we're doing is hard. It's not an easy job. It took almost 2 years before we actually launched the product. So it's not an easy one. We had also a second round, which was an A round, proper A round of 12 million, was led by one of the largest private venture capital in Italy, which is United Ventures. We picked them because, well, first of all, we had a previous connection, so people who we trust and we actually knew since a long time, but also because, again, they have this very good approach of being completely hands-off, and they trust what we're doing, they back us, they support us, anything we want to do. So that's a great, it's a great combination. And, I think that by the end of 2024, we're going to be looking into a B round.
Okay.
So that's the next, let's say, the next milestone for us. So we very relaxed now in terms of funding, but we really focus on building the pipeline and execute the pipeline on the commercial side, so that next year when we go back to the market, we're going to have good numbers. That's really the focus right now.
Excellent. And focusing most of the time on Italy, or do you cover clients outside of Italy?
We actually, this is a great question. Actually, I forgot to say, we just started to scout for, I would say, to build the pipeline outside Italy. So we're working on a couple of deals which are pan-European. We're going to launch Italy first. If everything goes well, we're going to launch Italy first because we have the obviously presence here, so it's easier to launch here. But with the idea to then launch right after additional countries, basically. So we have already started to look outside Italy. Obviously, this will probably be the focus of after the B round, because we need additional resources. But we started to build the pipeline because obviously the sales cycle is probably between 6 and 8 months. So it's good to start in advance.
Thank you very much, Enrica. Prior to closing the discussion, I'm always asking my guests a book recommendation or a podcast or something you want to share with the audience. So what do you recommend to us today?
Oh, well, so for those who are Italian, I actually wrote a book, but I don't want to spoil. I don't want to do marketing of myself. So I think that, there are lots of good books about startups and scale-ups. The one that I really enjoyed was the hard things about. What's the name?
Hard things about hard things.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. It's like a little difficult to pronounce. I think is great because it's actually a book which gave me a lot of inspiration on how to pivot when is the right moment. So I'm keeping an eye on whatever sign I could potentially see if we need to change anything into the business. Not so far, but it's always good to be aware of the fact that even successful company had to pivot sometimes. So and they're still successful. So that's what I recommend today.
I laugh a lot because it's been recommended, I guess, 12 times.
Yeah, it's number one. You know why? Because also, to be honest, I think one of the reasons why it's so good is because he's not politically correct. And in the when he's talking, for example, about the fact that he was using bad words or swearing in the company, right? I don't know if you remember that chapter. And he basically say, "Well, I don't care. It is what it is. That's who I am. I like to do this, and I do it." Period. And it's fun. It's not politically correct. And to be honest, in a startup, you can understand that sometimes you have a little bit of pressure. And
clearly,
but to be honest, I think that in general, I really like the idea that success can be associated with pivots sometimes. I think that's the idea that we should always, remind ourselves. It doesn't mean that you haven't made it, right? It's just a little different from the original idea.
Question of adaptability.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much, Enrica, and thank you, Luca. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for listening and sharing this moment with us. Don't hesitate to contact me on Twitter or LinkedIn to share your comments and reactions. You can also rate this episode on your favorite podcast platform. See you soon.